Hi, welcome to the show. Today is Wednesday, so we've got a Wellness Wednesday headed your way. Dr. McDaniel has some studies and information for us about vitamins and their effects on telomeres. So we'll be right back right after this.
Today, I think is very important in regard to what you know about the power of nutrition as found in nature. And it's constructed around two textbooks that I was given, one very special one. It's entitled Limeys, and it was given to me by a relative of Dr. James Lind, who did the original vitamin C studies in the British Kingdom, and it was a graduate of Edinburgh School of Medicine. And I lectured there twice and found out to this day he is one of the most illustrious members, graduates of that medical school. And they have auditoriums named for him, and they respect him to this day because he conducted the first controlled clinical experiment ever conducted on the deck of His Majesty's ship Salisbury in 1747. In addition, we will refer to information that is in the book, The Real Truth About Vitamins and Antioxidants by Dr. Judith DeCava, who is, I would say, a disciple of Dr. Royal Lee, DDS, who went all over, particularly the Americas, trying to inform everyone that would listen about the power of more comprehensive nutrition. With that, I will go to the first slide, which I hope gets across to you why I am attempting to give these lectures to put into your mind facts rather than there's a lot of power in faith, which if you look in the dictionary, it says faith is based on information which there's no proof. What I want to give you is knowledge that is based on scientific truth about the power of more comprehensive nutrition. And we'll start today with what you need to know about real vitamins made in nature. Thank you. The first slide that we have in this lecture, I think is important. And I've tried to tell you this before, but I'm trying to really get across the fact that knowledge and proven facts put into the brain, which the function of the brain is the mind, are extremely powerful, particularly when you know that modern science has documented the power of more comprehensive nutrition. Why is this so important? We are surrounded by, in our society, professionals and other lay people that firmly believe that if you have any deviation from normal health, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, there is a pharmaceutical drug for it. Unfortunately, father of pharmacology pegged the problem with this is that pharmaceutical drugs interfere with the biochemistry and physiology of the normal function of our body. And this interference is to reduce symptoms and make you more comfortable. And the most ideal drug is if you quit taking the drug, the symptoms come back because it does not address the cause for symptoms. Whereas the power of nutrition is that it works in harmony with the engineering and design of life that is written in DNA in our genes that controls cellular synthesis of bioactive molecules on an assembly line that's in every cell and that this runs the normal biochemistry and normal physiology of the body, and it attempts to correct the problem of any deviation from normal. And what is most remarkable is that this is found to be safe, to be effective, because it supports engineering and design of life. It's coded in DNA. And what causes even more problems, and it's a disruptive technology because it is exceedingly more economical than pharmaceutical drugs that are in patent protection that are very expensive. Now, I want to go over this again with you. It's that medical science terms this ability of the body to properly function, by normal action of the genes with optimal nutrition, is the placebo effect. The placebo effect is not a false effect. It is what the body can do with its innate genetic and nutrient resources if provided optimally. What one consciously knows to be true, which is a function of the mind, impacts the unconscious mind, that in turn has an impact on the autonomic nervous system. That is the automatic nervous system that controls your heart rate, your blood pressure, your body temperature, the movement of food along the GI tract. You don't do this by thought or by activity like moving your arm. It works automatically. Well, this autonomic nervous system has the capacity to influence gene expression, or the code of DNA that orchestrates cellular synthesis of bioactive compounds by the little assembly line every microscopic cell. And it's these bioactive compounds that conduct the biochemistry of life. Therefore, what you know and believe to be true and have seen the fact is extremely powerful, even more powerful than belief based on faith with no proof. This knowledge drives the placebo effect in your body, what it can do on its own with the code that's in the genes. Now, medicine conducts formal blinded clinical studies trying to eliminate this powerful placebo effect. That's why they have double-blind placebo controls. Not only the patients don't know if they're getting a false product or the real thing, and even the investigators don't know, and they even call it a triple blinded effect when the statisticians that look at the results don't know who or which individuals are receiving the tested product. Now, in the New England Journal of Medicine, decades ago, I read a letter to the editor from a medical school professor that he wrote in and said, we need to spend more effort on studying the placebo effect because it is so powerful that medicine goes to great lengths to try to eliminate it, to see if what they are doing really works, and that it is the placebo effect has no toxicity or untoward side effects, and it's infinitely more economical. I am reading a book called You Are the Placebo Effect, and this letter to the editor said more studies should be done to study this. And in fact, in this book, it gives time and time again that over the decades, studies have been done to try to study the placebo effect. And one of the most important ones that I read was at one of the dental schools, they had 40 patients that they had the wisdom teeth removed, which is a very painful operation, particularly post-surgical. And they were given a capsule and told, this will reduce your pain. This is what went into their ears and their eyes and their brain to function their mind. And in fact, the capsules were not anything but sugar pills. Yet it worked because they believed it would work. Then they did something that I had never seen before. They gave these patients a injection of a compound that blocks opioid products binding to nerve fibers that is essential to reduce pain. And by giving this Narcan injection, the pain came back on all these people that had been receiving the sugar pills. And then they analyzed the thing and found out that the body was making endomorphins that are made by the body that bind to the receptor sites of opioids, pharmaceuticals. And by kicking off the endomorphins, the pain came back. And so it eliminated what the body is able to do based on the power of belief. So this lecture series is an effort on my part to maximize the placebo effect on your body, that you know that supplying nutrient molecules that support the engineering design of life and cellular synthesis to make bioactive molecules that moves the body's activity to normal. Now, in the early days of me being a physician, I was induced to be a distributor for Amway, and they were very focused on selling Marciano cherries out of a Caribbean island, and said it was more powerful than FDA approved USP vitamin C, that the natural vitamin C in these cherries was much more effective. At that time, as I put on the slide, why, I did not know, and science did not know why natural cherries were better than the FDA labeled vitamin C. Before this lecture is over, I think you will know why. Now, I will share with you from that book about limeys, the story of Dr. James Lynn, and then Dr. St. Georgi, PhD, from Hungary, and his two research papers in Nature, a magazine journal in Britain, about his, pardon me, I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. Two papers he wrote in Nature on his research on vitamin C. Now, this is a significant problem that I'll have to tell you, I've been a physician over 50 years, and I have never seen a patient with vitamin C or scurvy. However, let me read you something. 1740, Commodore George Anson left Portsmouth, England with 7 ships and nearly 22,000 men. He returned 4 years later, sailing over the British Empire with under 600 men. Of those 22,000, only 4 were killed by the enemy. The rest died not of results of war or weather or misnavigation, but of scurvy. So 21,400 men died of scurvy. And so Dr. James Lynn decided to attack this problem. Now, he was initially known as a ship surgeon. And you could become a ship surgeon by just spending some time with a formal physician, just being his assistant, and then they would let you serve on the ship. He conducted in 1794, 1747, I got that wrong, on the deck of His Majesty's ship, the Salisbury, the first formal controlled clinical study ever done. And to this day, the medical school that he went back to, because no one would pay any attention to him as a ship surgeon and sort of a folk medical person, he went back to medical school on the belief if he could get his MD and then tell them about his study, that people would accept it. Well, it was such a deviation from what everybody expected. He had a terrible time doing it. And as I say, on this ship, Dr. Lynn conducted the first clinical medical study where he had different groups of men with scurvy, and he gave them different alleged benefits that were word of mouth spread around in the Navy that was benefits for scurvy. Well, he had heard that oranges benefited scurvy, and citrus was the only benefit observed by this ship surgeon. And he even found out that lime juice was even better. Now, in the 1930s, Albert St. Georgi, a PhD researcher, started to study this natural vitamin C. And we have a picture of him here. And a very interesting statement he made was, and you should keep this in mind, I think, he says, a vitamin is a substance that makes you ill if you don't eat it. That's pretty practical determination. And why do I say you really need to consider this? Well, when I was in medical school, we never had a lecture, no one in clinic, nothing was in the books about attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And lo and behold, in the research that I was involved in, by providing children that were taking drugs for this, it caused a lot of problems, that a mixture of vegetables and fruit powders, when added to the diet, eliminated this problem. And these students not only got over their dysfunction of their brain, but they improved their athletic performance. And this not only extended from students, but even to professional athletes. That optimized nutrition improves body function. Now, Dr. St. Georgi from the University in Hungary received the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1937. And in 1936, he published his first publication in the journal Nature, where he took guinea pigs and gave them, that had been denied a diet that had vitamin C in it, and he gave them what he called extract from vegetable material, I believe spinach, vitamin C complex, he called it. And I emphasize complex. He called it citrin dietary supply because it was so high in citric fruits. Now, in the guinea pigs, he showed that the vascular lesions were prevented and even reversed with this vitamin C complex he also called hexauronic acid. Again, trying to emphasize it was a complex molecule made in the plants. Now, Dr. St. George had his second publication in 1939, again in the journal Nature. And what he basically said is that the pharmaceutical industry offering ascorbic acid synthesized from glucose is not the complete vitamin C complex molecule as produced in nature's plants. He went even further to show with the guinea pigs that 2 milligrams of natural vitamin C was more bioactive. This was vitamin C extracted from a plant material than 1,000 milligrams of U.S. pharmaceutical grade ascorbic acid. And I'll show you exactly why they were making this ascorbic acid and calling it vitamin C. But the natural vitamin prevents vascular lesions of this malady that particularly influenced sailors of the British Navy. If you recall, the British Empire was worldwide, and they said that the sun never set on the British Empire. So they had ships all over the world with personnel on it, and it's recorded in history that over 2 million British sailors died of scurvy during the high points of the British Empire. Now, the second book, and before we're going to get more modern truth about vitamins, is this book, The Real Truth About Vitamins and Antioxidants by Dr. Judith DeCalva. She was a disciple of Dr. Royal D., who is noted for his stressing everywhere he went about we should eat whole food. And his legacy is a company that still exists called Standard Process Incorporated, where, again, whole foods as they occur in nature or as their product line. Now, in this book by Dr. DeCalva, to the left, you see ascorbic acid and its molecular structure, and that is synthesized from glucose, which has 6 carbons in it. And this is sold as USP vitamin C, but it's only part of the structure of natural vitamin C, which is at the right. If you will notice, as you start from the outside in, there are 4 ascorbic acids produced in the plant on the periphery of this vitamin C complex. In addition, into the molecular structure, you have bioflavonoids, you have tyrosinase, which has copper in it. We have shown the importance of cations from the periodic table. Well, there's copper in vitamin C, and then they describe P factors, K factors, and J factors. And at the end of the assay, I will show you radial analysis of these differences in the migration of these natural vitamins versus the synthetic. And we have shown you how iron is important in hemoglobin molecule, that it doesn't convey oxygen without it. And copper is in this structure, is in tyrosinase. So this is why years ago, when in the United States, they were trying to market maraschino cherries vitamin C and saying it was much more bioactive than the USP vitamin C. This is why, because it's the cherries make this molecule on the right. Now, as I pointed out, the ascorbic acid was 4 molecules on the periphery, which have oxidative protection to keep the vitamin C in the reduced state. Now, the P factor, or rutin, strengthens the endothelium and collagen structure of the capillaries. The K factor supports blood coagulation, bone, and other tissues in vitamin C. The J factor supports oxygen transport of hemoglobin, and the tyrosinase with its copper molecule is a biochemical activator. And they feel like evidence shows that it elevates mood, it supports the nervous system, and it reduces the metabolism that leads to fatigue. The bioflavonoid complex are metabolic factors that stabilize vitamin C and reduces pain and bruises, and it supports capillary structure. So this is the various components of the natural vitamin C and what they do when they're taken into the body. I want to give you another example of the importance of the natural structure of vitamins, and it's vitamin E. Now, in the Finland study, due to the history of reduced oral cancer in individuals that ate food with high vitamin E content, they did a clinical study that only contained beta tocopherol, and this study clinically failed. They had to stop it because giving only a portion of the structure of vitamin E, as you can see here, it has a structure they call delta tocopherol at the periphery, then gamma tocopherol, then beta tocopherol, which is the only thing given in this Finnish study in smokers. And then it's got xanthine, and important at the center of this vitamin is selenium, which we keep wanting to emphasize that various bioactive molecules have a element present that it doesn't function without this trace mineral. And that's why in New Eden, we put humate, which has up to 65 or 75, depending on the assay method used, trace metals. And then they have other factors, which they call factor 1, 2, and 3, as part of the structure of vitamin E is found in nature. Also, the Harvard physicians' vitamin B study failed for the same reason. Only part of the structure of vitamin B structure was used in the study, and they did not use the full complex molecule of the vitamin as it occurs in nature, as was originally found in plant material and the story of vitamin development in scurvy. Now, to approach the end, there is a radial assay where you take the natural vitamin, you put it in the center of a plate that has agar in it and allow it to diffuse naturally to the periphery. Then you spray these plates with reagents that will show you the protein structure or the nucleic acids or the various components that can be shown. And you can compare on the left each of these of the natural vitamin versus the synthetic vitamin, of the difference in the patterns. And it's more intricate and complex components in the natural vitamins. And this is one of the easy ways to detect the difference between the inorganic minerals and components of the synthetic vitamins versus the complex structure of natural vitamins. Now, to summarize this, the synthetic U.S. pharmaceutical vitamin versus the natural vitamins, there is a different molecular structure. That nature produces a more complex nutrient molecular structure with better bioactivity than can be done in the organic chemistry laboratory to make a pharmaceutical commercial product. And again, it's a recurring theme in biology and the biochemistry of bioactive molecules that you have to have a molecule of iron and hemoglobin. You have to have magnesium present in chlorophyll. You have to have selenium present in vitamin E, copper and vitamin C. And this is found over and over again. And to do this by man-made efforts is extremely expensive and too complex to be able to produce a molecule that people could afford to buy. That vitamin B1 for beriberi, vitamin B3, niacin for pellagra, vitamin A for night blindness, vitamin D for rickets and osteoporosis, and vitamin E for fertility and detoxification, quenching of free radicals, preventing cataracts and macular degeneration, all require a complex molecule as found in nature and is only made in nature. And it's very important that minerals, trace minerals can be very important, because iodine alone is very important in disorders that develop in the thyroid, and the tetany, that happens with the skeletal muscles just going into contraction, is an alteration in calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And then, of course, in osteoporosis and other bone problems, how important the molecule calcium is. I offer to you that the vitamin story of the importance of different natural molecules is being extended, is in a way not expected, by the fact of the passage of the dietary supplement law in 1994, as more comprehensive nutrition is provided, that deviations from normal that have come over the years as we have plowed up our gardens, chopped down our orchards, and in the market, fruits and vegetables are provided that are picked green, so that there will be a shipping life and a shelf life, that by picking green, this is before the genes in the plant can put the nutrient molecules and make the complex bioactive compounds that are used in cellular synthesis. And one should recognize that the genes are organized to, much like the thermostat on the wall of your house or climate control in your car. What I mean is it's set for comfort. And if it gets too hot, air conditioning turns on. If it gets too cold, the heater comes on to keep you in the comfort zone. Well, the genes are set much like the thermostat for the normal zone, that it requires nutrients, molecules to run the cascade to increase the activity or the amount of material produced in cellular synthesis. And it also requires nutrient molecules to turn it off or down-regulate it to try to keep it in the normal zone. And this was recognized decades ago by the father of human physiology, named Dr. Hans Selye, that he called this condition homeostasis. So, in final, I hope that this puts into your knowledge base information you may not have known before, that supports when you run into the criticism in our society. The brother-in-law that's a doctor, or the sister has become a nurse, and they have been, like I was, indoctrinated that only pharmaceuticals can improve health and restore deviations from normal, that in fact, the organizing, creative, and designing power in the universe that has been one of the biggest mysteries of man, that in the plant kingdom, what the genes inside our body require for normal health have been provided, and that the diet is so important to be diverse with many different types of different nutrient molecules to supply what the genes require for optimal health. That's the end of this session about the natural vitamins versus synthetic vitamins. Thank you. This lecture.
So that was pretty amazing. A lot of similarities there. When we were talking about, where you're talking about the importance of that, the cell structure, and why that's more easily brought into the body, more usable that way. I think that's what my message was. I was supposed to get out of that, or that's the big takeaway for me. Oh, I have you I have you muted, or maybe you have yourself muted. I'm sorry.
Does that work now? Can you
Yes,
hear?
I can hear you now. Thank you, Dr. McDaniel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking here when I was in college and we had the week end of the semester when we were working night and day and felt like you were out of gas and no more get up and go. I would go to the drugstore and buy a multivitamin
Oh,
and take it. And if it ever did any good, uh, I didn't detect it. The same thing happened in medical school. It was a tough time, off times, particularly the ends of semesters where we're having so many hours studying, trying to get ready for exams. Take a multiple vitamin and see if you couldn't get a boost. I never got one. Now I know why, because the vitamins that are sold so cheaply at the drugstore do not have the full complex structure that the original discoverers, when you read about the history of the vitamin discovery, they were using extracts or either whole plants material that have the complex vitamin C that fits into molecular structure and cellular synthesis and improves the health. I hope that this is something that the people listening didn't know and could appreciate now, even more so the fact that I say this story started out in 1985 when I was asked to be a consultant to Carrington Laboratories, and they were going to try to make a new drug from the active ingredient of aloe vera, because the aloe vera leaf gel had a history of up to 5,000 years ago that had been used by multiple civilizations to support health. The fact is, Alexander the Great had a war train in which he had aloe plants that they would break the leaves off of them and put the leaf gel on arrow, sword, and spear damage to his troops, and they would heal faster, and there was less pain. And if there was anything about burning, it helped burns too. And so they were trying to develop a new drug. Well, at the FDA, the I was involved, and we started in their studies, and we had real trouble in the phase one, which is toxicity studies that the FDA requires, because the father of pharmacology, who was named Paracelsus, most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. And this is true, and we ignore this. If you notice on TV, the ads for the new patented drugs, in the first part of the ad, they'll have beautiful colors, beautiful people, beautiful music. Then all of a sudden they go black and white and talk so fast you can hardly hear it, telling you all the toxicity and side effects of this new, wonderful, marvelous drug. Well, the truth of the matter is, a company in London asked me to go to Brussels in Belgium when the European Common Market was developing new pharmaceutical laws and regulations, and also for dietary supplements. And I was ignored, of course, but I said that we should have a scientific definition of what a drug is and what a dietary supplement is, rather than crony capitalism, which was something that big pharma and the sickness industry liked, because it gave them authority and control.
I think they're one and the same.
Yes. And I pointed out that drugs work because they inhibit, substitute for, stimulate, or depress normal biochemistry and normal physiology. They interfere with the engineering and design of life that is coded in DNA that controls the bioactive molecules that are made by the cells, by the little assembly line inside of each cell that I've given you in previous lectures, to that the genes make these from, and that these molecules from plants, nutrient molecules, are hooked together under the control of the genes to move things to the normal zone, not the comfort zone like thermostat on your wall, but to the normal zone in biochemistry. And of course, in the normal zone, the point I wanted to make was that we got thrown out of the FDA because the active ingredient in the aloe vera leaf gel was found to be acetylated mannose, a sugar or a saccharide unit that was acetylated, and it was utilized in cellular synthesis in the second step of cellular synthesis called endoplasmic reticulum. 9 molecules of this molecule from the aloe plant, organized in 3 chains, make a domain on the surface of the membrane of every cell in your body, and that this domain carries information of instructions and actually harmony between all the cells in our body. There is a desire with trillions of cells for them to all be working together in harmony. And that's what this domain with the active ingredient from the aloe that had the 5,000-year history of being used, because people are not stupid. They use this and they got benefits. And even though modern medicine tends to discredit anything that a patient tells them works, they say it hasn't been properly vented or a double-blind placebo study done. But when literally thousands of different patients in different locations say this works, you ought to listen. And if there's any talent that I have, I think it is since 1985 to listen to people when they tell us that this active ingredient from aloe does incredible things. Fact is, today I just got a report from Germany that a person that has had rheumatoid arthritis for decades and taking terrible toxic drugs, that because of taking the New Eden, there's been such an improvement in all the signs and symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis that they decreased the steroids, decreased the methotrexate, and the doctor that's a specialist in this area was amazed by how this patient had done so well. And of course, I'm kind of high today because this is the great reward I get by hearing of this from people time and time again. And I said, this is not a miracle. That's one of the things I frequently hear from people. They've been taking all these expensive drugs and having toxicity and side effects, and all of a sudden more comprehensive nutrition solves their problem. They say it's a miracle. Well, I tell them it's not a miracle. A miracle is very, very uncommon. Fact is, out of Rome, they have a committee that goes to investigate so-called miracles, and very seldom do they say, yep, that's a miracle. And of course, they're not very often. But number one, the benefits that the active ingredient from the aloe does for all your autoimmune diseases, of which there are about 80 of them, and rheumatoid arthritis is one of them, is over and over again. So something that happens common again and again. More comprehensive nutrition gives the genes what they need to make the bioactive molecules to move the body to the normal zone. And that's incredible that in the plant kingdom that the organizing, designing, creative power in the universe put in the plant kingdom what our body's genes require for optimal health. And one of the things I wanted to make from this lecture we just had is that we got thrown out of the FDA because we had no toxicity for the acetyl mannose. Also, another thing that caused a problem is too many good things happened. Before this time, even though I had my medical education and 2 residency programs, I didn't realize that medicine was organized one drug, one disease. And there's an old saying in medicine, there are no panaceas. Well, this active ingredient from the aloe makes any panacea that you may have heard of in history look weak and pale compared to the benefits for this domain on the surface of the cells for harmony and balance between all the cells is so incredibly powerful. If you got all the cells working in harmony, good things can happen. Well, we had all this scientific data that the FDA required because Carrington Laboratories raised about $20 million to use for the research to make a new drug. And here they got all this information and been thrown out of the FDA because there was no toxicity. And that is pharmaceutical heresy. Also, everything we tried it for improved. That was another strike of heresy. So here we have all this information and can't go anywhere with it. Well, in 1994, they passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which created formally the dietary supplement industry. Very important. There were 2 different groups pushing for or involved in this legislation. One group was the people, the voters, the public. They wanted more freedom to be able to use things that they had found out that were not FDA approved drugs. But that's the votes that the elected officials that are going to have to consider this legislation have to consider this huge group. Then there's another group that was opposed and testified over and over again against the Dietary Supplement Act. And it was made up of the pharmaceutical industry, its watchdog, the FDA, the NIH, the medical school complex, the American Medical Association. All of the sickness industry testified against this. However, this was industry where you get money to run your political campaigns to try to get your votes. So here they've got these legislators, what are we going to do? We can't offend either group. So in the preamble, the first paragraph, I want to paraphrase for you, was what it threw to the citizens, and I happened to be one of them at the time that celebrated the first statement, which was in the preamble, which said, science and medicine has proven that optimal nutrition is essential for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore health. Hey, we were all just patting, shaking hands and celebrating that statement, but it was in the preamble, and as a constitutional attorney told me, that is not law. That's not part of the law. That is only a statement of why this legislation was considered.
Really? That's interesting because in our own Constitution, our preamble has some really strong language about what to do with a tyrannical government. And so that's interesting that that's not part of the law, or not considered part of the law.
And so that's not part of the law, but down in the labeling section, they threw the other side what it really wanted, the source of the money. Paraphrase again, it states that only an FDA-approved pharmaceutical can represent or claim to treat, cure, or mitigate a disease or syndrome or correct an abnormal health condition. That is law. And that is why nearly every time I open my mouth, I say, we do not treat, cure, or mitigate disease. All we do is optimize nutrition for the body. And the body in the genes has the information to take this nutrition and do good things with it. And today I was trying to point out that the industry has falsified what vitamins are, and that in effect, with the dietary supplement law and what we have seen with the acetylated mannose, is this is like a continuation of the story you've heard for years about the vitamin story of finding different things in food that, as Dr. Georgie said, a vitamin is a substance that make you ill if you don't eat it.
Yeah, I love that.
And in the lecture, I point out that when I was in medical school, in the textbooks, in the lectures, in the clinic, we didn't have any attention deficit disorder children or hyperactive children. However, it's on the front page of many magazines and article after article, and it's a major challenge now. And they've developed some drugs for it that help improve with some children their memory and learning process and their behaviors, but they have a lot of side effects that parents don't like. Well, lo and behold, by providing powders from fruits and vegetables to a bunch of children in Chicago that had fallen through all the cracks of the school system to a little church school called Israel Academy. These kids got off their drugs and began to behave and learn. Fact is, in this little church school, they would have parents night over and over again, and it's in the welfare state of public housing, and no parents would come. When they started this new nutrition that we gave it to them when they came to school, the next time they had a parents' night, every child had somebody that showed up. And the
I had
teacher
noticed a change in their child. Yeah.
and they came in and they said, what are you doing up here? My child comes home and gets out their books and gets their lessons done. We don't even have to tell them or harass them. They do it on their own. We tell them to do something, they do it. We ask them to quit doing something, they quit doing it. They don't fight with their brothers, older and younger brothers and sisters, or the next door neighbors. This is not my child. What in the world are you doing up here at this school? That's why they came. Well, all we were doing was providing more comprehensive nutrition, and these children were getting off of drugs and remembering, behaving. It's I often think of up at Bronson, Missouri, they have these things for tourists where they'll have a chicken or a rabbit in a glass cage, and you put in a quarter and it puts some chow there, and the light turns on, and they begin to work a little ping pong ball, put it through a little miniature basketball going, and here comes either corn or chow, and they run over there and they get the reward, and then they jump up and down wanting to put you another quarter in. You can teach an animal to do this, but you take children that have a whole lot more capacity than a
Right. And they do have a desire to please you. But when we're bombarded by all these chemicals in our environment, in our food, and lack of nutrition in our food, it can be really distracting for these young minds to want to learn and please you and all that. So that's where what a dramatic difference that the nutrition showed in those children. There's a question in the chat from Manny. He says, Uncle Cliff, which is one of our kind of gurus, he's a great friend of ours, a very knowledgeable man, says to take liposomal vitamin C. Is that similar to what you were speaking of with the citric vitamin C that's in the New Eden, or comparable, the vitamin C complex?
Well, this liposome is a packaging thing, and interestingly enough, back in the 1950s, the head of the pathology department where I trained was named Ashworth, and he showed that triglycerides form a little ball or kind of a sphere around different nutrient molecules, and they're selectively taken up in the first section of the small intestine in the duodenum. And you had electron microscopy of it showing that these lipo stands for fat, and triglyceride is one of the fatty substances that the villi, much like little microscopic fingers, take these little particles and selectively take them in and put them into the bloodstream. And so liposomal is one way of increasing the uptake of a nutrient molecule, and it's being used for different things. And another thing, we've combined this with what they call nano. And nano is a term for very small. And it was explained to me by a researcher in the field who said to me, Dr. Mack, how many elephants can you get in your house? And I said, well, not many. You probably can't even get them through the door. He says, well, how many mosquitoes can you get in your house? And I says, innumerable. He says, that's what we do with nano. Okay. And so some of it, they will take big particles, nanolyze them to be tiny, and then put lipid around them like the liposome. And so they have whole lots of this nutrients selectively brought in faster by this type of combination of advances in research that are going on in the area of nutrition.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's more about the delivery system of the vitamin C, not necessarily what type of vitamin C
yes, there are ways to make these natural things work better. I particularly remember in pediatrics, you have a lot of things you put on the skin of children that have different rashes and all, and they pointed out that if you take the saran wrap in the kitchen and put over it, it doesn't dry, and it will stay moist under there, and that it'll work for hours, whereas if it dries, it no longer is effective. So there are different delivery things that you can do to enhance the supply of either a drug or a nutrient to your cells.
That's really interesting because I always thought it was, well, when it's dry, it's all the way absorbed, but it could have been just evaporated, not absorbed. So that makes a lot of sense too.
There's some skin conditions where you have weeping and all, and you do want it to be dry, but we're talking about when you're
trying to deliver
some of these, particularly for softening the skin and lubricating the skin, that are natural fatty substances that reduce aging. The fact is, one of the things that in this research with the active ingredient aloe, of women saying that wrinkles went away and that turkey neck type things tightened up, and it was because it was supplying to the collagen label and the elastic label new generation of the subcutaneous tissues, like there's active when you're younger. And so the appearance of being older was made younger, and this made a lot of people happy that, we're all getting older.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I had my kiddos come home for Christmas, and one of them I haven't seen in a little while. And he was like, well, I haven't seen him in a long time. And he was like, gosh, Mom, you're getting older. And the other one I haven't seen in a little while. And she was like, wow, you look younger. So it's very interesting, their perspective on how mom's aging. But I think we're all, trying to look our best and feel our best. And having this comprehensive nutrition is definitely a way to do that. And the delivery system, being able to take the New Eden, mixing it into a shake, or I just take mine with a little bit of cold water. I swirl it around and knock it back 3 times a day. For me, that's just the easiest kind of way to do that, and make sure that I get that in. So I would love to, I'd love to get you connected with Ken at C60, the guy with the C60 stuff. They just came out with gummies, and I know you had a time where you guys did some gummies, but they ended up turning out brown or something, or they first were one color, then they were brown bears. I don't know. But he's got a product. I would love to be able to make this more palatable to kids,
That was what the effort was. They were called Phytobears.
Yeah.
And one of our biochemists, founders of the dietary supplement company that I was a consultant to for a decade, said kids like Phytobear, gummy bears. Would be nice if we could come up with some delivery system that kids would want to take. More comprehensive nutrition that was made available is what we had. And actually, he phoned the gummy bear people, and they said, well, we'll help you do it, because all we do is get complaints from the web and in the mail about running people's children's appetite, and they want to eat their vegetables and their fruit at dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to see a healthy bear on the market. So we came out with the Phytobear, which had about 20 powders in it of fruits and vegetables, and it tasted very good. They had nice colors, and it flew off the shelf. We had pretty good evidence that adults liked them just like children. And one of the problems was that each of these little gummy bears, that in the hot months of the year, they would melt and would go together, and we'd have phyto block.
Yes. The blob. Yes.
Blob. And so that was discontinued. But it was a effort to try to make a delivery system, just like the question was about liposome C.
Yeah.
It's a delivery system that enhances the rate at which a nutrient is taken into the body.
You did tell me about some parents kind of getting creative themselves and making their own gummy bears with the New Eden powder. And I had forgotten about that. I'll have to do that next time Cannon's home. We'll make some.
You touched on it. Probably autistic children are one of the most difficult individuals to get to take anything. And what the parents would do is they would find out they like Jell-O, and they have to be a certain color and texture of Jell-O. And so they would calculate the amount of the adult powder that they would mix with the Jell-O and make those squares just the right size and number to get a nice delivery system. And these autistic children would scarf up this Jell-O and get it as a delivery system.
So it was Jell-O, not gummy bears. Okay. I was trying to remember. I was like, I know there was some trick Dr. McDaniel told me.
In my book, The Gift, on page 90, is the most incredible story of an autistic little boy named Ryan that just became a more normal in their emotions and all by more comprehensive nutrition, which apparently supports normalization of the biochemistry of neuroamines and neuroreceptors in the brain. And whatever is going on is wonderful for these parents that very frustrated over this child that sometimes, with all the care and thought at all, has never even acknowledged that the parents exist, never accepted being held close or saying, I love you. That child never shows any emotion whatsoever to their parents. And all of a sudden, as I've had phone calls and contacts personally, thing that this autistic child says to her mother or father, I love you, for the first time in their life by getting more comprehensive nutrition.
I know that's really these stories. You just have hundreds and thousands of these stories, and I appreciate you sharing them with us. And I'm excited to start seeing some of our stories from our own community, as we have, a lot of members that are using New Eden in their nutrition, and starting to see the benefits of that. And I can see where it drives you when you hear something like that, that a child with autism, just told their parents that they loved them, and they, hadn't had that experience. And you can see that child coming back to those parents. And I could see that.
You kind of pushed a button, because I remember a phone call from El Paso, Texas. This Hispanic mother and father had this autistic son. And after he got on the more comprehensive nutrition one night in the darkness, he had never said anything. He said out loud to them into their bedroom, Mama, Dad, I love you. The parents cried themselves to sleep that night. And when they phoned me, and I've got tears in my eyes,
Yeah, that's
thinking
powerful.
about the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment, the wonder of this parent shared with me. And this is one of the wonderful things that have happened over and over and over again.
What a blessing. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that you're sharing this education with us and with the world. I appreciate everybody in the community. You guys in the chat have been actively participating and sharing your stories. And you guys can always write in the comments, let us know your experience with New Eden. And you can find a link to the description in the description below, where you can find Dr. McDaniel's book that he was speaking of, The Gift. I believe it's $9 or $10 on the website. And there's other resources. You can purchase a subscription where you can get New Eden sent to you once a month, so you get a discount there. And also, when you place your order, there's a comment box where you can say how you have any abnormal or deviations from normal in your health, and they might be able to give you some information or studies that would apply to your situation. So hopefully that is helpful to everyone as well. Dr. McDaniel, I appreciate you and your time and your knowledge that you share with all the community so much. And I look forward to our next chat.
Well, thank you.
All right.
To everyone.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on The New Normal. Take care.